cars, houses, buildings, and fashion style. How do we make it? Yes, of course, we have to make a design first before we come up with these things. For building a car, we should have a suitable blueprint made by an expert designer. For a similar fashion, we require a suitable design or plan just before the collection and analysis of a research project. In making a building, houses, and other establishments or other buildings, architects and engineers, they make a design before they proceed with the construction of these houses and buildings. Planning of a design must be carried out cautiously because even a small mistake could mess up or ruin the purpose of the entire project. The design helps the investigator or the researcher to organize his ideas, which helps to recognize or fix his faults, if any. Hello grade 8 students, and hello to all the researchers, the future researchers out there. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. This is me again, Teacher Tid May, syempre ang kasama mo sa inyong research journey. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for more updates in Research 2. Okay, bago tayo magpatuloy sa ating lesson vlog, inaanyayahan ko lang kayo kung meron kayong mga kaibigan, kakilala, kapatid, kapitbahay, o kakilala nga, dating kaklase, at meron kayong mga kakilala, at untod ako sa kakilala, na incoming grade 7 students at gustong maging part ng STE or Science, Technology, Engineering Program ng Quezon National High School. Magkakaroon tayo ng early registration. So, puntahan nyo lang ang page na to sa Facebook, Quezon National Official and Science, Technology, Engineering Program. Ito lang, ipopost ko dito. So, naandyan yung announcement tungkol sa kung paano magpa-register at kung qualified ka bang maging STE student ng Quezon National High School. So, hurry up at mag-register na kayo. Welcome for another lesson vlog in Research 2. So for this week 1 of our quarter 3 in Research 2, we're going to discuss about the research design. And for the content standard of our discussion for Research 2 in quarter 3, and again for this week, okay, our learning competency for this week, which is all about the research design, you're going to apply the principles of a research design. Are you ready? Yes, of course. For today's lesson vlog, you're going to encounter different terms which you have to master and understand throughout this lesson. So, we have the research design, RCBD, CRD, randomization, replication, local control, and blocking. When you heard the word design, what comes into your mind? Sige nga. Okay, di ba pag sinabi nating design, so syempre, ang unang papasok sa isip ninyo, magdodrawing kayo, o kaya gagawa kayo ng isang magandang plano. Okay? Bago kayo magsimula sa isang project. Lahat ng project, nagsisimula yan by simply creating a simple design. Because what do we mean by design? Diba when we say design, this is also a plan. Okay? This will serve as our guide throughout the project that we are going to make. Without this design, without the plan, so it will be difficult for us to proceed with any activity, any experiment, or any investigation that we are supposed to do. So it's really important that we have to set first the design para at least, kumbaga, meron na tayong makikita na, okay, ito yung aking susundin, ito yung magiging pattern ko while I am conducting this investigation. Especially if you are a student under STE, you are making science investigatory project, which is ito naman talaga yung pag-aaralan natin kung bakit tayo nag-aaral ng mga ganitong concepts about research. Of course, every detail on how you're going to conduct your research investigation, everything should be mastered. Okay, let us define first research design. What is a research design?
A research design, according to Querlinger, research design is the plan, structure, and strategy of investigation conceived so as to obtain answers to research questions and to control variance. Research design is the set of methods and procedures used in collecting and analyzing measures of the variables specified in the research problem research. It is a systematic approach that a researcher uses to conduct a scientific study, and it is the general plan of how you will go about your research.
Okay, it is mentioned that research design is a general plan on how you will go about your research. Okay, tandaan, this is a plan. Okay, napaka-importante na alam natin kung ano yung magiging plano natin throughout the experimentation. Parang kung magbabiyahe lang kayo, for example, may pupuntahan kayong isang destination or magta-travel kayo, di ba kailangan alamin nyo muna kung ano yung mga dadaanan nyo, ano yung una yung sasakyan, lalo na kung commuter kayo. So, alam nyo kung saan kayo bababa, ano yung kasunod yung sasakyan ng jeep or bus or whatever, para mas makarating kayo sa destination. That is also like in making a research design, making a science investigatory project, or making an entire project, you have to follow a procedure. And of course, that procedure ay manggagaling sa inyo. Dapat alam nyo yung sunod-sunod na pattern kung paano kayo mag-a-arrive with your project. Remember that research design carries the important influence in the reliability of the results that you attain. Yes, of course, kasi nga dito naka-base yung mangyayari sa inyong entire project. Okay, tingnan nyo class yung mga gumagawa ng mga damit. Okay? Yung mga gumagawa ng mga gown. Sila ba kumukuha na lang ba sila bigla-bigla ng isang tela and then tatahiin na nila? Di ba hindi? Gumagawa muna sila ng sketch kung ano yung magiging resulta ng end product nila. Sa mga designer din ng mga bahay, ng mga buildings, yung bang mga gumagawa ng mga buildings and houses, bigla-bigla na lang bumibili ng hollow blocks at itinatayo na lang bigla yung bahay. Di ba hindi? Kumukuha sila ng mga architect and engineers para i-design muna yung mga bahay para makita agad nila yung magiging output ng kanilang project. So, same with our science investigatory project, same in making a research study, you have to make design first. You have to make a plan first before you proceed with anything. Para mas maging smooth na yung inyong process kung paano kayo magpuproceed ng step by step sa inyong gagawing project. Ano naman pag sinabi nating experimental design?
Experimental design refers to the complete sequence of steps undertaken to answer the research problem. It involves the logical structure and organization of an experiment. It is a detailed plan of the sampling procedures, data collection, and data analysis followed by investigator during the actual experimentation. It also includes the variables under. What are the functions of a research design and experimental design? First, it provides direction during the actual experimentation. Second, it allows a gain of maximum information relevant to the problem at minimum cost. And next, it makes the statistical test of significance valid because it takes into consideration all the assumptions that went into deriving the various statistics. What are the general feature content? The design of an experiment depends on the type of research undertaken and the nature of the conditions under which the study was done. There is no common blueprint that will serve as a guide in writing an experimental design. The design of an experiment is dictated by the question it is to answer, And remember that each problem requires its own design. Now, let's talk about what are the two basic principles of experimental designs.
There are two basic principles of experimental designs. Do you know what are they? Okay, very good. We have the randomization and we also have the replication. So, ano naman yung pagkakaiba ng dalawang to?
We have randomization, replication, and local control. What is randomization? Randomization refers to the assignment of the experimental units to the treatments or vice versa by chance. It ensures a valid or unbiased estimate of population parameters. Randomization, for example, the means and the difference between treatments. It ensures the validity of the statistical test of significance, and it neutralizes in effect the influence that pre-existing differences between samples might have on the experimental results.
Okay, sa randomization, ito yung part na kailangan nating i-assign yung mga experimental units natin na gagamitin natin for our project. So, for example, may treatment kayo na kailangan gawin, and then, ano ba yung tinatawag natin experimental unit? Di ba ito yung subject natin na kailangan nating i-investigate? So, yun yung kailangan nating i-assign sa ating mga setup. So, for example, kung meron kayong 5 setup, and then, for example, meron kayong experimental unit na kailangan yung gumamit ng 25 samples. So, syempre, kung meron kang 5 setups, dapat tigli-5 din yun yung bawat setup. Eh, kung 25 yun, so ibig sabihin tigli-5. So, yung sinatawag nating randomization, kung paano mo i-assign yung 25 na yun, kung saan sila mapupuntang setup. So, mamaya, may ipapakita tayong example kung paano ba at paano ba natin malalaman kung ano ba itong randomization. So, para mas magkaintindihan tayo.
Replication. It refers to the repetition of the basic experiment, and it is done to provide an estimate of variation among observations on units treated alike, assessing the significance of observed differences. Replication, it makes the test significance possible. The number of replicates needed is based on the degree of precision required and the degree of homogeneity of the samples and the number of treatments in the study.
How about for the replication? When we say replication, from the word itself, replicate, meaning to say we have to duplicate and we have to repeat. So, there is a repetition in making this. So, isa to sa principle ng research design kasi hindi pwedeng palagi na iisa lang yung magiging trial ninyo. For every experiments that we make, that you conduct, dapat magkakaroon tayo ng mas madaming trial. So, minimum na ang 3. Para saan ba yung replication? Siyempre, para ma-attain natin yung validity ng result natin.
Local control. While local control, it refers to the balancing, grouping, and blocking of experimental units that are employed in the adopted design.
Now, let us talk about validity, precision, homogeneity, and blocking. So, what are the differences among these?
Validity, it ensures what should be measured is being measured. It also increases the range of application of the results to a wider range of other similar conditions. While precision, it refers to the degree to which the design can detect differences between treatments. Homogeneity, it means samples have the same characteristics except in the response towards the treatment variable. And when we say blocking, it is the allocation of the experimental units to a block in such a manner that the units within the block are relatively homogeneous. Some bases for blocking are height, age, sex, weight, differences in soil fertility, and extent of exposure to sunlight.
Okay, before we explain further those 4 other principles of experimental design, now let us discuss first the difference between the CRD and the RCBD. When we say CRD, it means complete randomized design. And when we say RCBD, it means Randomized Complete Block Design.
What is the difference between CRD and RCBD? CRD is also known as the Complete Randomized Design. When we say Complete Randomized Design, the treatments are randomly assigned to the experimental subjects without restriction. The experimental subjects are assumed to be homogeneous with respect to the factors that could affect the treatments being compared. And the design is appropriate to use if the experimental subjects have similar characteristics. Example of CRD. Consider a study done by PSHS, or the Philippine Science High School students, to determine the effectiveness of nail polish to seal cracks in chicken eggs intended for hatching. 20 eggs of the same size, small, medium, or large, date of production, and which came from the same breed of chickens were used in the investigation. The experimental eggs with cracks were sealed with 3 coatings of colorless nail polish, while the control eggs also with cracks were not sealed. The number of eggs that hatched in each group were counted after subjecting both groups to the same conditions for hatching. Since the samples of 20 chicken eggs is homogeneous, meaning to say they are the same size, date of production, and came from the same breed, the CRD is the appropriate experimental design for this research. The eggs were numbered from 1 to 20 and randomly assigned either to the experimental or control group until there were 10 eggs in each group, and then a die was used for the randomization procedure. When the die is shown and an even numbered side 2, 4, or 6 came up, the egg was assigned to the experimental group, and when the die was shown in an odd numbered side came up 1, 3, or 5, the egg was assigned to the control group. 20 throws of the die were done. The designation of even numbered sides of the die to the experimental group and the odd numbered sides to the control group is arbitrary. The assignment of the eggs using a die to either the experimental or control group illustrates randomization, while the grouping into either the control or experimental setup constitutes local control, and number of eggs per group illustrates replication.
Okay, so para mas maunawaan natin ng mas malinaw kung ano ba itong CRD or yung sinatawag na Complete Randomized Design, kanina binanggit dito na yung Complete Randomized Design, ito daw yung treatments are randomly assigned to the experimental subjects without restriction. Bakit sinabi na without restriction? Okay, at ang sabi dito, experimental subjects are assumed to be homogeneous with respect to the factors that could affect the treatments being compared. Okay, binanggit din kanina yung example natin para doon sa CRD. Okay, di ba ang sabi kanina, okay, consider a study of Philippine Science High School. So, meron silang piniprepare na 20 eggs. Okay? And then, ang sabi dito, yung study nila is to determine kung effective ba yung nail polish to seal cracks in chicken eggs intended for hatching. So, ano yung experimental unit na ginamit nila? So, merong prepare na 20 eggs. So, yun yung magiging experimental units natin kung saan i-apply natin yung treatment natin, which is yung nail polish. Bakit CRD ang ginamit dito sa situation na to? Di ba pag sinabi nating CRD, sabi, without restriction, at ang sabi, it applies to all with the same homogeneity, meaning to say, pare-pareha sila ng characteristics. In this situation, dito sa ginawa nila, may 20 eggs na pare-parehas ang size nila. It's either lahat ay small, lahat ay medium, or lahat ay big. So, ipagpalagay na natin na lahat ay small yung 20 eggs na yon. At ano pa, same ang date of production. Pare-parehas din yung kanilang breed kung saan nanggaling itong chicken eggs na to. So, kaya CRD, ibig sabihin, kung yung samples mo or yung experimental unit na gagamitin mo ay pare-parehas ang characteristics, ang gagamitin natin ay simply CRD or Complete Randomized Design. Okay. Since dalawa lang naman ang kailangan niyang gamitin, ang gawin which is yung experimental setup at saka yung control setup, and since yung ating independent variable here is the nail polish, titingnan natin kung effective ba yung nail polish para daw mag-seal ng cracks ng chicken eggs intended for hatching. So, ang ating experimental setup dito is yung nail polish. Yun yung experimental. At syempre, yung control, yun yung hindi nag-receive ng treatment. So, paano mo hahatiin ngayon yung 20 eggs na alin yung mapupunta sa experimental at alin yung mapupunta sa control group? Okay. Sa CRD kasi, tandaan nyo na mayroon lang dalawang basic principle na gagamitin dito. Ito yung randomization at saka yung replication. Paano i-apply yung randomization na tinatawag natin? Diba? Pag sinabi natin randomization, assignment of the experimental units to the treatment. Okay. Tandaan nyo, diba may 20x kanina? So, yung 20x na yun, na pare-parehas nga, paano niya ilalagay sa experimental unit at paano niya ilalagay sa control group. So, for example, ang ginawa dito ng taga Science High School, since dalawa lang yung setup natin, isang experimental at isang control group, meron tayong 20 experimental units which is 20 chicken eggs. So, very obvious na tig-10 ang kailangang ilagay natin. So, paano natin pipiliin yung eggs na yon? Okay? Sa research design na CRD, simple lang ang ginawa nila. Kumuha sila ng die. Di ba yung die, meron siyang 1 to 6, di ba, dahil ay cube. Yung bang pag initsa mo, tapos lalagpak, it's either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, ang ginawa nila dito, ay kapag daw tinapon yung die, and then, ang lumabas doon sa die ay 2, 4, 6, or even numbers, i-assign daw nila yun sa experimental group. So, kapag naman, odd number yung lumabas, 1, 3, 5, automatic, doon yun sa control group. So, kung nandito yung egg, sorry, wala akong egg eh. So, kunwari, andito yung egg, tapos mag-a-assign na tayo. Kukunin ko yung isang egg. Okay, ayan, kunwari, kinuha ko yung isang egg, and then kukunin ko si die, tapos pagtapon ko, ay, 3. Okay, ibig sabihin, yung 3 ay sa control group. So, ito ay sa control group. Okay, kuha ulit ako ng isa pang egg, second egg, and then, i-throw ko ulit yung die, and then, ang nangyari naman ay, odd number for example, so, ilalagay ko ulit naman siya ay doon sa control group. And then, pangatlong pangatlong egg, tapos tapon ko ulit yung die, lumabas naman ay even number. So, ilalagay ko itong pangatlong egg doon naman sa experimental group hanggang maubos yung 20 eggs at maging na sila, balance na 10 for experimental group and 10 for control group. Okay. So, yung assignment natin ng eggs na gumamit tayo ng die para malaman natin kung siya ay experimental unit or control group, yun yung tinatawag natin na randomization. Kasi we are assigning the experimental units to a treatment. So, saan naman papasok doon yung tinatawag natin na alin naman doon yung local control? Di ba pag sinabi nating local control, it means balancing, grouping, or blocking of the experimental units. So, yung meron tayong group ng experimental unit at group naman ng control group or control setup, so, yun naman yung tinatawag natin na local control kasi nagkaroon na tayo ng groupings. Ito yung group ng experimental, ito yung group ng control group. Yun yung tinatawag na local control. Nasa naman doon yung replication. Okay, yung replication naman, yun yung number of eggs per group. Okay, and that illustrates the replication. Tingnan nyo, doon sa isang group na experimental unit, ilan ba yung eggs doon? Diba 10? Okay, doon sa control group, ilan yung eggs doon? 10 din. So, bakit nagkaroon ng replication? Ibig sabihin, hindi lang isang egg yung nilagay mo dun sa experimental unit or control group para matest nyo kung talagang effective itong nail polish to seal cracks intended for hatching. Kasi kung iisa lang yun, mababawasan yung validity at precision ng ating results dun sa ginagawa nating experiment. So, yun. So, kung makikita nyo dun sa CRD, nakita nyo dun yung randomization, replication, at saka yung tinatawag natin na local control. Remember that when you're going to use the CRD or the complete randomized design, make sure na yung experimental unit na gagamitin nyo, pare-pareha sila ng characteristics. Lahat ay pare-parehas. Ibig sabihin, hindi kayo magkakaroon doon ng bias. Kasi, once na may kakaiba na doon sa mga experimental units na gagamitin nyo, hindi na pwedeng CRD. Kasi, ang gagamitin naman natin design dito is yung tinatawag natin na RCBD or the Randomized Complete Block Design. So, ano bang meron dito sa RCBD?
Let's talk about the randomized complete block design. RCBD is the experimental subjects are divided into more or less homogeneous groups called blocks. The purpose of blocking is to have experimental subjects in a group, all of which have similar characteristics, so that observed differences will be largely due to treatments. Example of RCBD. Consider a study done by Philippine Science High School to determine the effectiveness of nail polish to seal cracks in chicken eggs intended for hatching. This time, the 20 eggs were of two different sizes, although they came from the same breed of chickens and were not the same production date. 10 eggs were small and the other 10 were large. The cracks in the experimental eggs were sealed with 3 coatings of colorless nail polish. Successive coatings of nail polish were applied after the previous coating was already dry. The cracks in the control eggs were not coated with the nail polish. The eggs that hatch in each group were counted after subjecting both groups to the same conditions for hatching. Since the sample eggs are of 2 different sizes, the RCBD is the appropriate different experimental design for this research. In one block, the small size eggs were numbered from 1 to 10. The other block was made up of large size eggs, which were also numbered from 1 to 10. Random sampling was done twice, once for each block. The same die could be used again as the randomization device. Whenever an even-numbered side 2, 4, or 6 came up, the egg was assigned to the experimental group. Whenever the odd-numbered side 2, 3, or 5 came up, the egg was assigned to the control group. This way, a total of 10 eggs were assigned to the experimental group, 5 being small and the other 5 being large. The other 10 eggs were assigned to the control group, 5 being small and 5 being large. The assignment of the eggs to either group illustrates randomization, the blocking and the grouping illustrate local control, and the number of chickens in either experimental or group 10 represents.
Okay, do you understand what RCBD is? So, para mas maunawaan pa natin, sige, explain ulit natin itong example naman ng RCBD para mas makita niyo yung difference niya doon sa kaninang example natin ng CRD. Okay, sa randomized complete block design, very obvious na meron tayong block dito. And remember that when we have a block, meaning to say, there is a group. Okay? Tandaan, di ba kanina sa CRD, anong sabi natin? Dapat yung experimental units ninyo, same ang kanilang characteristics. Lahat ay magkakaparehas, homogeneous sila. Pagdating naman sa RCBD, remember that the experimental subjects are divided into more or less homogeneous groups. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng block. Okay. Dito sa example ng RCBD, again, meron ulit study ang Philippine Science High School na kinonduct to determine the effectiveness of nail polish. Okay, same pa rin yung activity or research study na ginawa nila. Okay, i-determine pa rin kung effective ba yung nail polish to seal cracks in chicken eggs intended for hatching. Pero, this time, iba naman ang experimental unit na ginamit nila. Pero, same pa rin na 20 eggs. But this time, hindi na pare-parehas yung sizes. Ano lang ang parehas dito sa 20 eggs nila? Pare-parehas lang sila ng, they have the same production date. Okay, same din yung kanilang breed of chickens. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng 20 eggs na to galing sa iisang breed ng chickens. Pare-parehas ang production date, pero ang pinagkaiba nila, magkakaiba ang sizes. Okay? Dito, 10 eggs were small and yung 10 eggs naman ay large. Okay? Kung hindi tayo gagamit ng RCBD at gagamitin natin yung CRD at ipaghahalo-halo na natin yun, di ba parang medyo magkakaroon tayo ng bias doon? Kasi baka mapapunta lahat sa experimental group ay lahat ng large. Mapapunta naman lahat doon sa control group ay lahat ng small. So, bababa yung validity ng ating results sa ginagawa nating experiment. So, the best and appropriate design that you should be using in this kind of setup, in this kind of situation, is the RCBD, which is Randomized Complete Block Design. Bakit po RCBD ang gagamitin dito? Unang-una, sabi ko nga, magkakaiba yung characteristics nila. Sa sizes pa lang, 10 ay maliit, 10 ay malaki. So, kailangan nating magkaroon ng tamang process or tamang randomization kung paano natin ilalagay yung eggs sa control group at saka sa experimental group. So, ano ang ginawa nila? Okay, same pa din ulit. Ang experimental group, sila yung mga eggs na lalagyan ng coating ng nail polish. Remember na pag sinabi natin experimental group, this is the group that receives unusual treatment. Siya yung makaka-receive ng ating independent variable. Okay, pero kapag naman control group, ito naman yung basis of comparison natin, meaning to say, it will not receive the treatment. Okay, walang gagawin. So, ibig sabihin, hindi makaka-receive ng nail polish itong nasa control group. Since 20 eggs ang meron tayo, 10 eggs ay small, 10 eggs ay large. So, at since meron tayong 2 groups, experimental and control group, at 20 eggs yan, so, meaning to say, tig 10 pa rin yan. Pero, this time, since 10 eggs ang small, 10 eggs ay large, at 2 ang ating group, dapat 5 small eggs mapupunta sa experimental group, and another 5 small eggs mapupunta sa control group. And then, another 5 large eggs mapupunta naman ngayon kay experimental group, and another 5 large eggs ay mapupunta kay control group. Ngayon, paano natin gagamitin yung ating randomization? Okay. So, syempre, okay, lalagyan natin ng number, yung 1 to 10 na small, and then 1 to 10 ulit na large. So, gagawin naman natin, same pa din. Magkakaroon ulit tayo ng die, and then, kung ano yung even numbers, yun yung mapupunta sa experimental group, at yung matapat naman na add numbers dun sa die, yun namang mapupunta sa control group. Okay, for example, lahat muna ng small x, yung 10. Kunin ko si number 1 na small egg, and then ganon ko ulit, die, and then nakita ko number 2, so pupunta siya sa experimental group, and then another egg, and then i-check ulit, kapag lumabas ay even number pa rin, okay, lalagay ko pa rin siya sa control group, hanggang ma-achieve natin yung 5 small eggs para kay experimental, and another 5 eggs para kay control group. And then, pag nakuha na natin yon, and then yung large naman, ganun ulit. Okay, so, makikita nyo na nandun pa rin yung ating randomization at saka yung ating replication. So, bakit po kaya hindi na lang piliin ay 10 dito, 10 doon? So, mawawala yung essence ng pagiging unbiased natin dito sa ginagawa natin experiment. Dapat, it is always fair. So, kaya yun nga yung tinatawag nating randomization. Okay, the reason why we have randomization is for us to assign the experimental units to the treatment. At yun naman yung ginawa natin doon. Assignment of the eggs to either group, kung siya ba ay experimental or control, yun yung tinatawag natin na randomization. And yung blocking naman, okay, and grouping, illustrate the control. Yun ang kanina yung may large at saka may small, tapos inilagay pa natin sa experimental at saka sa control group. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na blocking. And then, when we say replication, yun naman yung number of eggs for each setup.
Now, what are the advantages of RCBD? First, because of blocking, more accurate results may be obtained than with the RCD. There are no restrictions on the number of treatments or number of blocks. And if extra replication is desired for some treatments, this may be applied to 2 or more experimental subjects per block. If data for a complete block or for certain treatments are unusable, if data for a complete block or for certain treatments are unusable, this data may be omitted without complicating the analysis. If the data are missing for some experimental subjects, this can be estimated easily by the missing plot technique developed by Yates. Even if the experimental error is large for some treatments, an unbiased error for testing the difference between any two treatment means can still be obtained.
This is the end of our lesson vlog for week 1 of our quarter 3 in Research 2. So in our next lesson vlog, we're going to discuss about sampling, the different types of sampling, the probability and the non-probability sampling, and of course, we're going to discuss and differentiate sample from population, and we're going to discuss also the Sloven's formula, of course, the equation that we're going to use when we are selecting sample from a given population. So I hope you learned something from this lesson vlog, and I hope to see you on our next vlog at sama-sama ulit tayo na ating pag-aralan itong mga lessons natin sa Research 2. Hanggang dito na lang, at again, see you on my next vlog. This is me again, Teacher Tin May, syempre ang kasama mo sa iyong science journey. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for more updates in Research 2. Bye!